Hi Year 11, this is a very quick revision video on paper 1, question 1, which is the 4-mark question. Before you read through the text, you can have a go at question 1, and this will help to settle your nerves and make you feel comfortable about what you need to do. So, the example that we're going to look at says, read again the first part of the source from lines 1 to 4. List 4 things about Mr. Fisher from this part of the source. So Mr. Fisher is going to be our key focus. So the first thing that we need to do is go back to the text, identify lines 1 to 4, and I would suggest perhaps drawing a line underneath it so you know not to go beneath it. Mr. Fisher lived alone in a small terraced house in the centre of town. So that's a piece of information about Mr. Fisher. He did not own a car and therefore preferred to do as much as he could of his weekend marking in the form room after school. Even so, there were usually 2 or 3 stacks of books and papers to take home on the bus. So he preferred to do his weekend marking in the form room, and there were usually some stacks of books to take home. So what I need to do, now that I've identified elements that I could write about, is to turn that into 4 sentences that are going to get me the marks. Now, when it comes to having a go at this question, remember we can separate our ideas into multiple sentences. So, for example, we could say, Mr. Fisher lived alone. That's the first thing that we learn about him. Now it also tells us in the text that he lived alone in a small terraced house. So I could put that. Mr. Fisher lived in a small terraced house. So I could say he lived in the centre of town. And finally, he didn't own a car. So you can see that just from the first 2 sentences that I've highlighted, I found 4 different pieces of information. Other bits of information I could have included were he didn't do his marking at home, or he did his marking at school. I could have done he travelled by bus. I could have done he took some papers home to mark. I might also have gone that he is a teacher, he is marking in the form room, he's doing his marking, because all of those things would tell me something about Mr. Fisher. Top tips for this question. Firstly, make sure that you either use the subject, name, at the beginning of each sentence, or a relative pronoun to make sure that the information you're including is clear and easily put together. And so Year 11, those are our top tips for paper 1, question 1.